If someone had told her that jealousy would make girls dig a hole just to bury her, she'd have laughed. But now, looking back, she realized that envy wears the softest smile and speaks in the sweetest tone before it strikes. Her name was Ogbema, though in her small village, people called her Beauty, the beauty of the gods. She never asked for that name, she never wanted attention, but somehow, from the moment she was old enough to fetch water at the stream, the world noticed that before she even noticed herself. She was her parents' only child. They weren't rich, just humble farmers with a tiny hut surrounded by cassava and yam ridges. Her mother was the kind of woman whose laughter made even a bad day feel lighter. Her father was a hard-working man who believed silence solved everything. Life wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful until other people's opinions started shaping her reality. The trouble began slowly. Whenever she walked past the village square, some girls would giggle and whisper. At first, she thought it was harmless. Well, one afternoon, while fetching water at the stream, she heard one of them hiss. "See how she walks like she owns the whole village just because her face finds small." She turned to look at them. Anna, Olivia, and Bante, 3 girls who always moved like a pack. Their eyes carried a mix of amusement and venom. She smiled awkwardly, hoping kindness would make things better, but it didn't. From that day, they made her their daily topic. It became normal to hear things like, "Beauty, fine girl no be achievement," or "Do you think the prince will marry you because your skin shines?" Sometimes they even mimic her walk. She'd go home pretending she didn't care, but the moment she closed her door, the tears came. Her mother noticed. She always noticed. "My daughter," I wouldn't say, brushing her head gently, "even sweet honey attracts jealous flies. Don't dim your light because others can't handle it." Her words were comforting, but they didn't stop the pain. Being beautiful in a small village felt like a curse. One day, the teasing got so bad that she begged her mother to let her skip the next market day. Nwene agreed, thinking rest would help. But that was when things took a darker turn. The girls started calling her names like Snake Girl and Spirit Child. They would whisper that her beauty wasn't normal, that her mother must have gone to a shrine to make her attractive. Soon, other villagers began to avoid her too. Nwene was furious when she heard the rumors. She said, "They will not destroy my child's name because of jealousy." But her father, ever the quiet one, told her to calm down. People always talk, let them talk. She wanted to believe him, but it's hard to ignore this thing when even children at the stream laugh behind your back. After a while, her mother stopped sending her to the market altogether. She said she didn't want her getting into fights or being humiliated. So she stayed home most days, helping on the farm or cooking. But staying away only made her lonelier. She could hear the girls laughing together whenever they passed by their compound. Sometimes she'd peep through the bamboo fence, watching them chat and sing as they walked to the village square. She wanted that too, friendship, belonging. Then came the day everything changed. The town crier beat his gong and announced that the prince was ready to choose a wife. There will be a grand dance at the palace and every unmarried girl in the village was invited. The whole place buzzed with excitement. Women started sewing new wrappers. Girls began practicing dance moves. She didn't plan to go. She knew what waited there, mockery. But her mother wouldn't hear of it. "Nwene, you will go," she said firmly. "Don't let fear cage your destiny. Who knows, the gods may smile on you that day." So she started preparing quietly. She found a beautiful wrapper in her mother's box. Nwene even gave her one of her carry necklaces. "You look like a queen," she said, smiling proudly. But while she was dreaming of a beautiful occasion, others were plucking her downfall. The girls, Anna, Olivia, and Bante, met the next morning at the stream. "Do you think Beauty will come to the dance?" Bante asked. "It better not," Olivia replied. "If she shows up, no one will even look at us. The prince will choose her instantly." "Then we make sure she doesn't come," Anna said. Their plan started with pretending to like her. A few days later, they came to her house, smiling from ear to ear, carrying roasted groundnuts and fruit as a peace offering. She almost fainted from surprise. They said they were sorry for how they treated her, that they had grown up and wanted to be friends. Her mother didn't believe it for 1 second. She pulled her daughter aside that evening and said, "Nwene, be careful. Snakes don't change. They just shed skin." But Beauty's heart was tired of loneliness. She wanted to believe people could change. The girls started visiting almost every day. They'd laugh with her, braid her hair, and compliment her dance steps. She began to trust them again, even though something in Una's eyes said she shouldn't. One afternoon, while they were at her house, she showed them the outfit she planned to wear to the dance. They gasped and said it was beautiful. "You look like a goddess," Banter said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She didn't notice then. Well, that was the smell of a wolf admiring its prey. Later, they gathered outside, whispering to each other. They decided to dig a pit in the bush and they would lure Beauty there on the day of the ceremony. They would push her into the pit, injuring her and ruining her chances of participating in the ceremony. The girls set out to the bush carrying shovels and hoes. They began to dig, using the sharp tools to break through the earth. They toiled for days, sweating and grunting as they walked. Their hatred for Beauty fueled their determination, and they kept digging until the pit was deep and wide enough for their plan. The morning of the dance arrived, and then I woke her early. She hugged that tightly and whispered, "Don't follow them anywhere. Go to the palace alone." I had a strange dream. Beauty promised she'd be careful. He headed to the palace to join the other women in cooking for the occasion. A few hours later, she saw the girls walking towards their compound, all dressed in bright colors, looking like flowers in full bloom. "Beauty," Olivia called, "we came to go with you. Let's take a shortcut through the bush. We don't want anyone seeing our clothes before we reach the palace." She hesitated. "But my mother said..." Don't tell me you're still listening to that old woman's superstitions," Anna interrupted, rolling her eyes. "We're all friends now, aren't we?" Beauty smiled weakly. Her heart said, "Don't go," but her mind said they've changed. They walked together, laughing, talking about how the prince might look. Beauty felt happy, genuinely happy for the first time in months. Then, as they got deeper into the bush, the laughter died down. The path grew narrow and quiet. She noticed the birds had stopped singing. Her chest tightened. But before she could ask why they were taking that particular route, Anna turned and said, "This way, Beauty. The path is smoother." When she stepped forward, she didn't see it coming. The ground gave way beneath her. She screamed, a scream so loud it felt like it tore the air apart, and she fell into a deep pit. Her leg hit something hard. Pins shot through her. She looked up, dazed, covered in debt, her head spinning. Above her, the girls stood at the edge of the hole, staring down with cruel smiles. "Look at you, Beauty," Anna said. "The village beauty, the queen to be. You want to dance, right? Dance there." They burst into laughter, their voices echoing through the trees. Her heart pounded. "Please help me," she begged, her voice shaking. "Why are you doing this?" But they just watched her. "You think you're better than us," Olivia sneered. "Let's see if the prince will still want you now." And with that, they turned their backs and walked away. She screamed until her voice cracked, clawing at the walls of the pit, but it was too deep. The sky slowly dimmed as the sun began to set, and she was left there, broken, shivering, surrounded by darkness. And that was when it hit her. She was trapped, and no one was coming to save her, and she knew she was in serious trouble. Bute's mother anxiously waited in the palace, but her daughter never arrived. She asked the other girls if they had seen her, but they claimed not to know where she was. They continued dancing and celebrating, oblivious to the worry and fear that was beginning to grip Bute's mother. She knew something was wrong, and she was growing increasingly concerned for her daughter. She went to find Beauty's father, hoping he might have seen her, but he shook his head and said he hadn't seen her since they left the house earlier in the day. As Unn stood in the palace trying to make sense of her daughter's absence, she remembered how excited Beauty had been about the ceremony. She remembered how she had been practicing and perfecting her dance moves for days. She couldn't believe that Beauty would simply choose not to come. Filled with fear and worry, she implored her husband to race home with her to see if Beauty was there. They both knew that something was terribly wrong. Meanwhile, the prince watched the maidens dance, but he felt no connection to any of them. Something in his heart told him that none of the girls were his future wife. He turned to his father and said, "I have not found my bride." The king halted the music and announced to the crowd that the prince had no wife. The crowd stared in disbelief, and the maidens stood frozen in shock. The jealous girls were filled with rage and disappointment, and their legs trembled with anger. Bute's parents rushed back to the palace, their hearts racing with fear. They reported to the king that their daughter was missing, and the king grew concerned.
Un told the king about the girls who were to come pick her up for the occasion.